Have you ever been on the verge of achieving something significant, a career advancement, a healthier lifestyle, or a fulfilling relationship, and suddenly realized that you were, inexplicably, undermining your own progress? Maybe you procrastinated until you missed an important deadline, started an unnecessary argument with your partner just when everything seemed to be going well, or abandoned a healthy routine just as it started to work. If this has happened to you, know that you are not alone. A few years ago, I decided to completely change my health after a worrying visit to the doctor. Over a period of 3 months, I was disciplined. I exercised regularly, prepared nutritious meals, and maintained a proper sleep pattern. The results were impressive. My energy increased considerably, my mood improved, and medical tests indicated significant progress. Friends began to notice and praise these positive changes. However, almost imperceptibly, I began to allow small exceptions to my routine. A single day without training became 3. Just this once for an unhealthy food has become a daily habit. Even with clear evidence that these changes were transforming my life, I gradually abandoned everything, returning to the same patterns that had initially compromised my health. Months later, I realized that this wasn't the first time I'd undermined my own progress. In fact, this behavior was repeated in different areas of my life. This led me to a crucial question: why do I keep sabotaging myself? Self-sabotage is frustrating and extremely common, but we rarely understand its deeper psychological roots. Today, we're going to explore the ideas of Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists in history, who revealed that these behaviors aren't merely matters of bad habits or lack of willpower. According to Jung, self-sabotage arises from complex mechanisms of the unconscious, which, paradoxically, believe they are protecting us. In this study, you will understand why your mind sometimes seems to act against its own desires, how to recognize the hidden patterns behind self-sabotage, and most importantly, how to initiate a process of integration and self-discovery. To do this, we first need to get to know the man behind these revolutionary ideas better. Carl Gustav Jung was born in Switzerland in the year 1875. At the beginning of his career, he was a close collaborator of Sigmund Freud, but over time he followed his own path, developing analytical psychology. While Freud focused his analyses mainly on repressed desires of a sexual nature, Jung broadened the understanding of the human mind, differentiating 2 levels of the unconscious: the personal unconscious, formed by repressed and forgotten individual experiences, and the collective unconscious, a deeper level shared by all humanity, full of universal patterns and archetypal images. In addition to these concepts, Jung introduced ideas that profoundly influence the way we understand ourselves to this day, such as the terms introversion and extroversion, psychological complexes, and the persona, our social mask, that we present to the world. But to understand self-sabotage, it is essential that we explore a specific concept of his theory: the shadow. The shadow, according to Jung, represents all the parts of ourselves that have been repressed, rejected, or never developed. As he once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it destiny." This concept is crucial for us to understand self-sabotage. The unconscious mind is not just a storehouse of repressed desires, but an active system that may be in conflict with our conscious goals. But after all, what is self-sabotage from this point of view? At its core, it is the phenomenon in which unconscious forces work against our conscious intentions. It's not just about bad luck or occasional failure, but a predictable behavior pattern where we end up harming ourselves at decisive moments. This pattern manifests itself in several ways on a daily basis. Procrastination: we postpone important tasks, even though we know the negative consequences. Self-medication: we resort to food, alcohol, or other distractions to momentarily relieve discomfort, but we compromise our long-term well-being. Sabotage in relationships: we push away loved ones just when the connection deepens. Self-limitation in the career: we refuse opportunities or create conflicts in the professional environment. What makes these patterns so persistent? Jung identified that the main responsible for this self-destructive tendency is the shadow, which contains aspects of our personality that we repress throughout life. From childhood, we learn which traits are accepted by our family and society and which need to be hidden. If we were taught that expressing anger was unacceptable, we can become overly passive. If we have been discouraged from being ambitious, we may end up sabotaging our own success. However, the shadow does not harbor only negative characteristics. It often holds our most authentic and creative qualities. The problem is that when these repressed aspects are not recognized, they tend to emerge in a distorted and destructive way. For example, someone who suppresses their anger may become passive-aggressive. A person who stifles their need for connection can end up creating unnecessary conflicts in relationships. Another important phenomenon related to the shadow is projection. This happens when we attribute to other people the characteristics that we deny in ourselves. That person who annoys us the most may be reflecting something that we need to integrate into our own personality. As Jung stated, everything that irritates us in others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Self-sabotage can also be related to what Jung called psychological complexes, which are groups of unconscious memories and emotions originating in past experiences, especially in childhood. Often, we recreate painful situations from the past because the unconscious tries to solve them. For example, if someone grew up feeling abandoned, they may unconsciously sabotage their relationships to confirm the belief that they will always be left behind. If you had overly critical parents, you may develop a relentless inner critic, undermining your own achievements. However, Jung did not see self-sabotage only as a problem to be eliminated, but as an invitation to self-knowledge. For him, the mind naturally seeks balance and growth, a process called individuation, the journey to become whole, authentic beings. When we face self-sabotage, we are often resisting this growth, as change requires letting go of family identities and patterns, which can be scary. As Jung said, there is no awakening of consciousness without pain. So how can we integrate the shadow and overcome self-sabotage? Self-knowledge. Reflect on your recurring patterns of self-sabotage. When do things usually go wrong? What aspects of yourself do you avoid facing? Working with dreams. Jung saw dreams as a window into the unconscious. Pay attention to recurring patterns and symbols. Imaginative activity. Imagine your self-sabotage as an entity with a voice of its own. What would she say? What do you fear? Creativity and expression. Drawing, writing, or creating something can help access repressed parts of the psyche. The journey to integration is not about eliminating the shadow, but learning to dialogue with it. As Jung concluded, the greatest adventure of a lifetime is to become who you really are. Now that we understand that self-sabotage has deep roots in the unconscious and is strongly linked to the shadow, the question arises: how can we break this cycle and live more authentically? The answer is not to fight the shadow or try to eliminate it, but to integrate it. This means consciously acknowledging, accepting, and working with the repressed aspects of our personality, rather than letting them act in the shadows, sabotaging our goals. Carl Jung emphasized that individuation, the process of becoming a more complete version of ourselves, requires an honest look inward. This means identifying the recurring patterns in our lives and questioning the stories we tell ourselves. Here are some questions that can help in this process of self-discovery. What patterns of self-sabotage do I perceive in my life? Are there situations in which I repeatedly prevent myself from achieving something positive? What moments in my life have aroused feelings of shame, guilt, or inadequacy? These feelings may indicate aspects of my shadow that I have not yet integrated. What characteristics in other people bother me deeply? This can reveal qualities that I am repressing in myself. What do I most fear to change in myself? Resistance to change often indicates where our greatest challenges and opportunities for growth lie. Writing down the answers to these questions in a journal can be a powerful way to bring up aspects of the unconscious and begin to work on them consciously. Instead of treating self-sabotage as an enemy to be fought, Jung teaches us that we should see it as a form of communication from our unconscious. This means that when we find ourselves procrastinating, shirking responsibilities, or repeating destructive patterns, we can ask, what is this sabotage trying to protect me from? Is there some unconscious fear behind this behavior? What emotional need is not being met? For example, Someone who always puts off important projects may be unconsciously fearing failure or even success, because success would bring about changes that seem threatening. Instead of simply forcing themselves to take action, this person could tap into these emotions and find ways to deal with them consciously. In addition to self-analysis, there are concrete practices that help in the process of integrating the shadow and overcoming self-sabotage. Dream work. Jung believed that dreams are direct messages from the unconscious. Keeping a dream journal can help identify recurring symbols and patterns. If a dream causes strong emotion or discomfort, it is possible that it reveals an aspect of the shadow that needs to be integrated. Imaginative activity. This method involves visualizing a conversation with the part of you that is sabotaging itself. Close your eyes and imagine that this side of your psyche has a shape and a voice. Ask them why they're acting this way and what they need to feel safe. This type of exercise can bring up surprising insights. Creative expression. Often, repressed aspects of our personality can be integrated through art. Writing, painting, dancing, or any form of creative expression can help give vent to emotions that were previously ignored. Shadow acceptance ritual. A powerful symbolic practice is to write about the aspects of yourself that you reject and then create a ritual to accept them. It could be something as simple as burning the paper and visualizing the acceptance of those parts, or reading what you wrote aloud as a commitment to yourself. Gradual change in behavior. When noticing patterns of self-sabotage, try small, gradual changes. Instead of trying to eliminate the behavior altogether, ask yourself, what can I do differently today? Consistent small steps drive big change over time. Jung emphasized that the journey to individuation and integration of the shadow is not a final destination, but a continuous process throughout life. The more we develop awareness about ourselves, the freer we become to live authentically. This does not mean that we will never face challenges or self-sabotaging patterns again, but that we will learn to deal with them more consciously and constructively. As Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." By bringing light to the hidden aspects of ourselves, we gain more freedom to act in alignment with our true desires and potentials. The way to overcome self-sabotage is not to fight our unconscious mind, but to understand its messages and use them as guides for true and lasting growth.